So my name is Anil Kumar Chaudhary, and I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Agriculture, Economics, Sociology, and Education at the Pennsylvania State University. So today I'm going to talk about social network analysis, and I'm giving my talk title as like an innovative way to design and evaluate your programs. So in this talk, what I'll do is, first of all, I'll introduce you all to like what the networks are, what social network analysis is, and what are the different like variables or measures used in social network analysis, or and then I'll talk about how to conduct a social network analysis. And then in second half of the session, I'll talk about like application of social network analysis, or how we can apply social network analysis in our extension context, like in program development and evaluation. So first thing is like, why do we care about networks? So what I want you to, like, before I talk about why do we care about social net or networks or in networks in general, so I want to hear from you guys that why do you think that networks are important? So if you guys can type in the chat box, that would be, just take like 2 minutes and type in your chat box that why do we care about networks, or why networks are important in our extension profession. Oh yes, it helps in program evaluation. It can help in program impact. Yep, that makes sense. Yeah, reaching out to like diffusion over messages. This will help us to maintain relationship with clientele and collaborators. Yep. So these are the like, so thank you guys for providing a lot of details and information. So like we are surrounded by networks, we are surrounded by relationship, because our extension profession is completely dependent on relationship. And like we work with extension clients, clientele groups. So we are communicating with them. So that is a kind of network. We are part of a like extension office, like county office or state office. So where we are talking to each other or communicating with each other. So that is also a kind of a communication network among ourselves. Like we are seeking advice from like our state specialist, or we are seeking advice from our colleagues. So that is also a type of network. So there are so many ways or forms we are surrounded by social networks. And like these social networks are very helpful. Thank you guys for providing a lot of information, like why we need social networks or why social networks are important. So then I want to talk about like what is a network. So in a specific language, like in a social network analysis language, a network is like a set of nodes and set of ties, and there's a relationship between those nodes and ties. So you may be wondering, what is node? So node is any entity that we are studying in a network. So for example, in an extension office, all the employees in the extension office becomes like nodes in that, if we are studying the communication network in the extension office. And then tie between the like all the extension professional in the extension office would be like they are communicating with each other. So that communication between those two, like two or extension educators, or one extension educator and extension specialist, so the communication or advice seeking, so those are the ties. So relationship can take multiple forms. So it can be like based upon, we form the relationship based upon location. Maybe we are in the same office, maybe we are participating in the same like event, like we are now joining this webinar, or everybody's part of this webinar. So now we are connected, like we are in a one network of NAEPSDP webinar network. And now the relationship between us is that I'm presenting the webinar and you guys are listening to this webinar. So this is we are participating in the same event. So that's how we are connected to each other. Or maybe like sometimes we make relationship based upon like our attributes, like same gender people want to talk more to each other. People from the same program area want to talk to more each other. People from same county want to talk more, will talk because they are somehow more provided more opportunities. So they are more likely to communicate with each other. And now I want to talk about the relationship and ties. They can take multiple forms. So as you can see on the slide, if you are able to see my slides, so you can see that um, relationship can be unweighted or non-directional. So unweighted means like we are just interested in a binary relationship, so whether the relationship exists or do not exist. And relationship can be non-directional, because we are not interested in seeing that whether I'm connected with Christy or Christy is connected with me. So here in this example would be a friendship network. So if I'm a friend with Christy, so where we are not in like a situation of like figuring out the non-direction. Oh, you guys cannot see the slides, so I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure out like how to pull up the slides. Okay, so are you guys able to see the slides now? I believe now you guys are able to see my slides. So now you can see in the slides that um, there are four types of relationships. So second is unweighted or directional. So let me check on the chat, like whether you guys are able to see my slides. Okay, thank you for confirming that. So now you guys can see my slides. So now there are four of ties I was talking about. The second tie is like unweighted and but directional. So where we are not concerned about like how often or how much we talk or what frequency we talk to each other, but there is a direction in that like uh, ties. So there is like direction here is like um, I'm going to Christine for seeking advice. So there is a direction there. So that's where we call it like unweighted but directional. But it can be weighted or directional. So here weighted can be like we are not thinking about like what who talk to whom, but we are talking about how often we talk to each other. So then in that situation, it would be weighted and non-directional. And finally, the situation is weighted and directional. So that is like we are studying a advice seeking network. So one person is going to another person to seek advice, but here we are also studying that how often we go out to that person to seek that advice. So that's how now we are studying a network that is weighted plus there is a direction in the network. So what is social network analysis? So this is like multiple time confused with like social media or Facebook or Twitter, but this is not like a social media networking or something like that. Social network analysis is a completely defined profession, and this is like there's a defined like a professional society for social network analysis. And if we talk about in a definition term or what is social network analysis, so social network analysis is a composed of both analytical methods like statistical methods along with multiple social science theories. There we work together to understand the interaction among the people and understand the social phenomena. So here, like in social network analysis, we not only study the statistics or not only study the phenomena, but the good part or good outcome with social network analysis is we get a network map. And in that network map, we can see that like who is situated where in that network and how they are communicating or connecting with each other. So there are like some theoretical found. So now just want to talk about like one slide about theoretical foundation or what are the foundation of social network analysis. So as per social network theory or like theory supporting social network analysis says that actors or like The example I gave you, the extension educator in a county office, they are part of a social system, and where we are not independent entities, we are dependent on each other. So for like we are working as a team, we are functioning as a team, so we cannot function if we are using social network context, then we are considering people as a, like independent on each other, not like independent from each other. And actors like share the information in those connections. So they may be like sharing information, sharing affection, sharing resources. So if we are doing some kind of program, we are sharing resources between two teams. And sometimes that how we are like placed together in that specific network influence that whether we are able to do certain things, and sometimes those networks hinder us to do certain type of things. So that is the like main theoretical foundation behind social network analysis. And application of social network analysis surround around like major four areas. So first is like how the knowledge is formed and how the knowledge is distributed or diffused among the population or among group of clientele if we talk about extension example. Then we talk about like how what is the structure of organizational structure and how that is functioning. So like we can study the like supervisor supervisee network, we can study the like trust network, we can study the prestige network. Then we have social capital network. So here social capital network is more of like understanding the social tie, understanding the connection among the individuals, or understanding like, for example, one example of social capital type of social network analysis is studying the communication network or how we are building a community. So for example, we are studying a network of a specific community in Pennsylvania, and we are trying to see using social network as a context to see that how that community is growing as a result of our program, community building program. And also, we can use social network analysis to explain different social phenomena, that why a program is more reachable in one county and why this program is not very reachable in another county. So we can, or why people are in county A are able to adapt more number of practices, if, for example, water conservation practices, why they are not adapting in other counties, what are their information sources, where they are going for information. So in those type of situation, we can use social network analysis. And now I want to talk about like from a network perspective, there are three ways we can approach the networks, or three ways we can approach the network analysis. So it can be at the node level. So node level, it would be like, for example, node level, I will talk the same example about extension educator in a county office. So if a one extension educator, for example, John, he's like in very good friend with most of the other people in the network, in the office, then he may be most likely not going to leave his job because he has a lot of friendship tie with everybody in the net office. And at the dyad level, like when we are talking about the relationship between two individuals, so maybe like we are talking, one example would be like the two people who share, two extension educator who share office are more likely to form the friendship network or more likely to become friends. And then at the network level, for example, uh, I want to give an example is that, for example, if extension organization in a specific state is promoting the use of evaluation and have a very favorable environment towards use of evaluation, then it is more likely that people are going to use evaluation into their program or evaluate their program. So now I want to provide you a few slides about different variables used in the network literature or social network analysis literature. So maybe you will be more comfortable when you're reading something about social network analysis. So first of the variable in the social network analysis is network centrality, or is mainly is the position in the network. So centrality talks about like where you are located, and based upon your position, you have different access to resources and information. And usually centrality is divided into four different types: degree centrality, betweenness centrality, closeness centrality, and eigenvector centrality. So degree centrality talks about the direct connection of an individual. So for example, in the same extension county office example, if I'm talking about degree centralities, so degree centrality for John would be like how many people he directly communicate to or how many people he directly connect with. So that is his degree centrality. And then between his centrality talks about like for how many number of times a somebody falls into like somebody's uh, in like how many times a person fall into like between the network of two individuals. So this is the individual who is in the center between the two individual is holding this betweenness centrality, and he or she can take advantage of this position because he's kind of linking those two organization or two individuals or two groups, and based upon his or her situation, her position in the network, he or she can take advantage. And the next is closeness centrality. So closeness centrality talks about how close John is to everybody else in the extension organization. So like closeness centrality is another terms in a simple terms would be like how fast John can spread information to everybody else in the extension organization. So that is closeness centrality. And finally is eigenvector centrality talks about, so it is pretty much similar to degree centrality, but in degree centrality, we talks about only the direct connection. But in eigenvector centrality, we talks about the direct connection, but here we give concentration to, so what is the degree centrality of that person who is connected to John. So here eigenvector centrality means not only talk about the direct connection, but here the maybe person is connected to John is connected to two individual, but other side Mark is connected to five individual, but John may have high eigenvector centrality because those two individual connects to a very big network of other organizations. So in that sense, and John have high eigenvector centrality compared to the Mark, who if we look from the degree centrality side, is connected to five individuals compared to John, who is connected to only two individuals. And now I want to talk about the other network variable is the brokerage. So brokerage is similar, like if we can make our daily living example. So brokerage is a good example, like when we are buying a house. So we are buying a like an agent to help us out to smoothen or transition this process easy for buyer and seller. So the person who is connecting buyers and seller is a broker. So here is the same example in the network situation. So maybe there are two group of like program areas. So for example, natural resource management program area and also forage and new development program area. And there is only one extension educator or one extension professional by name Mark is connecting or is the only communication link between those two program area, then Mark is playing the role of a broker into that specific situation, and he can take advantage of that specific situation because he can modify what information need to be transferred from um, one program area to the other program area. And then another network variable is the structural whole. So this is more of a like a theoretical definition or theoretical way to explain the between a centrality or brokerage. So structural holes are the like gaps in the network. So for example, uh, animal science program area and plant science program areas are not communicating with each other. So there is no connection between them. So there is a gap or hole into that network. So if somebody comes in and fills this gap, then he or become have high betweenness centrality, and he or she will be playing the role of a broker into that situation. Then the next network variable is homophily. So homophily says that like people of like attributes are more likely to collaborate or work with each other. So for example, people of same gender, people of same race, people of same program area, people of same education, it is more likelihood because they share same characteristics, and that makes them to connect more and talk to each other. Then the next variable is the clique. So in the example, I provided a network of six actors or six people, if I say, and the six people, and this six people, actor one, two, and five make a clique. So clique is a very cohesive group of people in a network where everybody talk to everybody. So this is the like most cohesive group and they are well connected. So if we have like multiple separate cliques in the network, then that's not a good for a network, because we don't want those cliques to be happening. We want those like a broader network, because we want our people to have access to like different information compared to the same information, because if they're forming one small group, then they are getting the same information between this group. Then the next variable is community. So here, when we are studying the network, then we are trying to figure out that does this network have any kind of groupings or communities. So as you can see an example here, so this is example from like one study I did in the Florida. So this is a work-related communication network. And here you can see that most of the people form one community. So there are like everybody is concentrated and talking to each other regarding work-related matters. And now I want to talk like, so these were the like node level or dial level variables. And now I want to talk about the network level variables. So there are some variables that are appropriate only at the network level. So first variable is the network density. So network density talks about like how many possible number of ties actually available in the network compared to the maximum possible ties. So here we can see that not all the existing tie exists between all the people, because the tie between 5 and 6 is missing, 5, 6 and 3 is missing. So network density says that more dense the network is, more connected the network is. And that's what we are looking for, because we want our network to be very dense and like everybody's communicating to each other. So there is another like opposite side of that is like network centralization. So what network centralization says that is that like if you are talking about an advice network, for like example in a situation of program development and evaluation efforts in a specific area of the state, and if like there's only one individual that is an expert in program development and evaluation, and everybody goes out to that single individual, then the network becomes centralized and he or she control that network, because if he is not available, then people have no access to information. So in an ideal situation, we are looking for more of a decentralized network. There are multiple sources of information and network is not dominated. And and another next variable is the structural equivalence. So structural equivalence is very useful, like using comparing multiple networks. So for example, we have a network of animal science program area in one county, and there's another network of animal science program area in another county. So in there, the person, for example, extension educator, are structurally equivalent because they are the people in both the network providing information on animal related matters. So they are structurally equivalent, and many times we try to find out that which is the structurally equivalent position in the different network, and then we try to do different type of analysis with that. And then I want to talk about direction of causality and like type of level of analysis. So we can treat our network variables, that is like different variables I discussed. They can work as a, like your predictor variables or independent variables, or they can become our dependent variables. So for example, like if we talk about the node level, so centrality in an organization or advice network may predict that people who are more central in advice and communication network have higher probability of getting promoted. So at the dial level, we can think about like if we think about like pair of farmers who are communicating to each other. So it is like friendship between the same pair of farmers may predict that the farmers are going to adopt the organic practices or not going to adopt the organic practices. And at the network level, we can think of like whether the cohesive network or non-cohesive network means like people are more connected to each other or people are less connected to each other, guide like better success for a specific organization. So there are like we can use network variables to explain this multiple phenomena, but at the same time, they can be used as one our outcome variables. So that depends upon like what situation we are handling with. And there are two different research design in social network analysis. So there are two ways we can approach the networks. Is like one is whole network and another is personal network. So the whole network talks about like when we have a network in hand, then we have access to all the people in the network. So first of all, we define a boundary for the network. So how we bound the network. So for example, extension organization, one study I did where I bounded the network is like any extension educator or extension specialist who is working on water quality or water quantity program area. And there I had like access to all the people who are reporting their time onto that specific program area or priority area. And then I captured the list of the people and I studied everybody in the network. So that is the whole network approach. So there is another opposite side of this is a personal network approach. So in personal network approach is mainly used when we do not have, when our network is very large or we cannot have a control or available information about list of the people. So there what we do is we are just going out to the people and we are figuring out that whom they are connected to or who they are friends with or who they give advice to or who they seek advice from. And then we build a network around a specific person. But if we collect data for a whole network, then we can extract data for personal network from the whole network. Because if we have data for everybody in the network, and now we can, if we want to look at the specific individual in the network, we can extract their network out and we can see that whom they are connected to. And then there are another thing to consider in the networks is the modes of the network. So whether the network is one mode or two mode. So one mode network is like when, for example, in extension office, we are just talking about communication patterns of extension educators. So here, extension educator A and extension educator. So we are just studying the networks or connection between the same group of people. So extension educator itself. So that is our one mode network. So here you can see on the right side of the network, this is a one mode network. Here we are, this is a network of extension professionals. And on the left side, you can see a two-mode network. So here in two-mode network, we are trying to see that how one group of individual or one group of entity is connecting with another group of entity. So here in the other side of in the left side of the screen, you see a two-mode network of programs and their stakeholders. So program is one mode and the stakeholders are other mode. So here the circles, the green circles, you can see these are the programs and the black dots, you see these are the stakeholders. So we can, sometimes the two mode networks are beneficial, but multiple times for analysis purpose, we convert those two mode networks into one mode networks. So here, if we convert this two mode network into one mode network, so the connection or relationship between the two program would be the one shared common stakeholder, or the shared stakeholder between two programs become the like connection between those two programs, and that's how we convert this two mode to one mode network. So this is like a brief, like a steps for conducting a successful social network analysis. So first of all, what we have to do is we have to decide who should be included in the network. What is your boundary of a network? How you're going to bound your network? So for example, if you are studying just a communication network for a specific program area, then this is how you're bounding the network. For example, we are studying the like how the information is spreading across a specific watershed regarding water conservation practices. So then maybe like the people who belong to that watershed become the boundary of the network. Then we decide upon whether we want to study connection on like a one mode network or two mode network. And then we need to decide whether it is a whole network study if we have accessibility to all the people in the network and we have a list of all the people available, then we can go with the whole network approach. But if that is not available, then we can go out to the personal network approach. And then we work on the like what network measurement we have to use, what data collection methods that will guided by like what mode you are selecting, what research design you are selecting. Then we collect our data, manage our data, analyze, and finally we do the visualization or produce the network maps, because that is the most powerful outcome out as a result of the social network analysis. And there are multiple sources we can use for, or multiple ways we can collect data for social network analysis. So the, the ideal data collection method would be interviews. So we go out to the people and then collect data about the people. because social network surveys are very cognitively cumbersome. Because one person, if we are studying a network of 63 people, then one person has to think about all the remaining 62 people in the network and think through like, if he or she talked to all the 62 people, how often they talk, because network service asks multiple things, how often they talk, what topic area they talk. So that in that context, interviews are more appropriate, but sometimes in the resource constraint situation, we survive on surveys, and sometimes we have like secondary data and like electronic sources. So as I was talking in the beginning, that social media is not social network analysis, but we can use data from social media. So we can use data from Facebook, we can use data from Twitter to develop the network. And also we can use observation to collect data for social network analysis. And survey question can be open-ended or close-ended question. So if we have a list of all the people in the network, then it will be close-ended. So we are just asking like, from this list, whom you talk to regarding like program design and delivery. But open-ended question would be like, if you do not have a list or you do not have like a very clearly defined boundary of the network, then maybe you're asking people, please provide me name of like 5 people who do you talk to regarding water conservation issues, or would you talk about like how to handle the water quality issues. So that depends upon like what type of network we are studying. And then network survey question can be weighted or unweighted. So weighted question would be like, we are not only talking about like how often the, like whether they talk or do not talk, but we are asking how often they talk to those people. So for example, in the last past 6 months, how often did you talk to these people? And then the unweighted would be like, do you talk or do not talk to those people? And in the networks, we also collect attribute data, or attribute data is also called as like demographic data. So like sex, education, program area, and in the coming slides, you will see the attribute data. And this is how the network data look like. So this is a in an Excel sheet, and where we have all the people on the row side and all the column people are the same. And then we can try to make the connection that whether, so this is a weighted network, if you can see there. So that's like how often they are talking to each other. And now I want to talk about like application of social network analysis and extension. So I will share 2 examples I use social network analysis for. So the first example, I did a study in Florida with Florida Cooperative Extension to study their work-related communication network for a specific priority area they have, water quality and water quantity priority areas. And then I tried, so main purpose behind the study is to study this network and then try to see that whether this network characteristics guide the use of evaluation practices used by extension professionals. So the different professionals were using different number of evaluation practices, and also like how their attitude toward evaluation is influenced by the network characteristics. So what I did is like, this was a whole network study. So where, because here I had a very defined boundary, because everybody, I was only those who were participant of my network is that those reported time to that specific priority area of University of Florida Extension. And here, like I use like few in network variables, so independent variables for my network centrality variables. So I use degree centrality, betweenness centrality, and closeness centrality, and few demographic variables like education, tenure, sex, faculty role, primary area programming. And then I collected also data on like number of evaluation practices used by these extension educators. And so this is the work-related communication network looks like. So this is the overall network. So if I go back, so what I did is like asked them like how often they communicate, and I provided a 5 point, like a 5 point scale. So that is like one was less than a month, about once a month, more than once a month, but less than once a week, more than once a week. So this was a weighted network, and this is the whole network with any communication. So I haven't like screened out like any communication frequency. This is for any communication frequency. This looks like everybody is connected to each other. And here just a description that here the color of the nodes says that what is their gender. So the pink is female, blue is males, and the size of node is that how much tenure they had in the Florida extension. And then you can see the some ties were thick, some lines were thick, some lines were thin. So the thick lines is more communication between those two people, and the thick line is more communication, thin line is less communication. And you can see overall like most of the people in the network are talking to each other, and there are only two isolates. And also you can see the different shapes of the nodes. So if you can identify, the circles are the county faculty or extension educator, squares are extension specialist, and you have up triangle is regional specialized agent, and there's one box triangle that is like a one specific faculty. So she was a program leader for a specific program. So at this stage, like at any communication frequency, you can see that everybody is connected to each other. But when you increase the communication frequency, now you said like only kept only those ties when they have communicating with each other like once a week or more communication. So here you can see that as you increase the communication frequency, then the network going to start to fragment. And now you can see that small groups are forming up. So this is a one big cluster at once a week or more communication. But now you can see small groups are forming out. And you can also seeing some patterns for homophily. So that like females extension educators talking to female extension educator, or extension educator talking to extension educators, males are talking to males. So those type of phenomena appears out once you increase the communication frequency. And this is the like network with degree centrality on. So here the size of the node is the degree centrality. So the bigger is the node, bigger is the degree centrality. And if you guys remember from my past slide, degree centrality is how many direct connection a extension professional had to other professionals. So here you can see that females in this network have highest degree centrality, and this female specifically have the highest degree centrality, as you can see from this node size. And this is a state extension specialist female, and which is have the highest degree centrality. So here the node color pink is females, blue is males, and the square is regional state extension specialists, circle is state extension educators. And I also did a statistical analysis to see that whether my network variables or degrees like centralities have any effect upon use of evaluation practices. And based upon my statistical findings, I found a like all the degree centrality have significant effect upon like predicting the use of evaluation practices by different extension professionals. But as you can see, this effect was not that high. But like the specific group I studies, they were very proactive in use of evaluation, and they were very active in like there were a lot of webinar, and they have a very specific evaluation specialist dedicated to that specific group. So that's why they were more connected. So if this study is replicated in other program area, maybe we see higher effect of like connect work related communication on the like use of evaluation practices. Then the second study I did is with Penn State Extension in 2013. So where Penn State Extension adopted a new business model, and I just conducted social network analysis study to see that what is the diversity and reach of Penn State Extension programs to its stakeholders. And I also looked at that like does the network variables have any influence upon like amount of developmental funding received by the different programs, and also like demand for the program. So this was the network of, so here I did not collected any primary data. This is a secondary data because this was the network of different programs delivered by Penn State Extension and their stakeholders. So as you can see in the next slide, so you can see in this slide, this is the like overall network of Penn State Extension programs in 2013. And you can see here that like they have a broad category of stakeholders, and they were if you can see that this network is divided into two parts, and there are four groups appears out in this network. So the group A is more like plant related groups, sorry, animal related group. Group B is more plants related group or horticultural type of group. Plans group C is more of like family and consumer sciences and that type of related program. And the for group D was more of like community engagement, community development type of programming. But you can see like some programs are left out. So if you can see the 4H and U development, that was not don't look like part of the group. So why this is that case? So the people who are part of one group or one cluster, they are sharing common stakeholders, but it looks like 4H and some other programs, they have very specialized stakeholder groups. So that's why they are not becoming part of other programming groups. And this is the same network plotted based upon the teams. So all the different programs were divided into 10 teams, 11 teams. And so this is how the same network was transformed into the teams. So here also you can see the similar patterns. So the dairy, veterinary teams make one group, then horticulture, field crops, renewable and natural resources make one group. And you can see forage and U development that is like completely separated out because they have a specialized stakeholder group. So that's why they are not part of that groups. And then I looked at the like how the developmental funding is received by the different program influenced by network variable. And only thing that really influenced the amount of developmental funding received by programs is the degree centrality. So how many programs, like how many programs were directly connected to each other. And here I want to confirm with you that this was a two-mode network. So it is network of programs and their stakeholders. And then I converted this two-mode network into one-mode network that is connection between programs and programs, but the connecting link between program is the common stakeholder groups. So here, the more programs were directly connected to other programs, the more likely they have received development funding. Maybe because they are receiving different ideas that how to write different grants or how to do the fundraising activities. And now I want to talk about like application of social network analysis in general context, in the context of program development and evaluation. So it can be, as I remember like from the beginning slide when I asked about why networks are important, and you guys provide a lot of information, and you can see that there's a lot of application of social network analysis. So it can be used as a program planning tool. So for example, if we are designing a program on water conservation, so we can use social network analysis to figure out what are the information sources for our clientele group. And based upon the like specific sources, we find out based on social network analysis, when we are delivering extension programs, we can target those group of people. Maybe those are opinion leaders, or maybe there are like specific neighboring community, and we can target those groups because they are the main information sources for the complete community. So that way, like, social network analysis is very helpful. Maybe social network analysis is helpful in identification of the opinion leaders. We can do a social network analysis and find out like which people are more central, and central people are mostly the like opinion leaders. For example, if we talk about youth program or forest related program, we can use social network analysis to evaluate youth related outcomes. So for example, if we did a camp for a forage kids, then we can see that like use social network analysis that how the support and learning community is forming for that group of kids. So in prior to that camp, they were not that very talking to each other, or they are not working very closely with each other. But after the camp, we can see based upon social network analysis that they are more connecting, more talking, and that would be a one way of like impact or outcome of our program. And also this can be, so it is like challenging sometimes to use social network analysis completely as like a standalone evaluation tool, but most of the time social network analysis is used as a companion tool like to your traditional program evaluation. So we do our regular program evaluation, but we use social network analysis to bolster our findings, to bolster our like, to show the impact of our program. And also like we can use social network analysis to motivate people. If we are doing a like a community building program. So maybe at the beginning of the program, you do a social network analysis and show to the people that they are not very connected to each other, and there are very, like, some people are very outside the network. And then once you show those type of networks, these network maps are very motivating, and they can help people to take active part into the programming process, and they will become like active contributing member of the process. And we can explain like various program outcomes using social network analysis. So for example, here in the two examples I seen, I talked about, like, one example is like use of evaluation practices. So there I use social network analysis or social network variable, that is centrality variables, to explain those outcomes. Or like in the second example with Penn extension, the amount of developmental funding received by different programs, I use network variables. Maybe you can do a social network analysis to find out why this program is successful or why this program is not successful. Maybe you can use this program for formative evaluation to improve your program, or maybe you can use social network analysis at the end of the program as a summative evaluation tool. So currently I'm involved in another study. So we are studying a governance network of like all the people who are like group of different organizations or groups who are working together in a specific part of Pennsylvania regarding water quality or water quantity issue. So here we are delivering a program to build the community, and we are using social network analysis as a tool to see that how this program is helping to build this community. And then there are so many other applications, general application for social network analysis. So for example, our we are connected, or we are communicating, or we are delivering program to extension clientele. So we can use social network analysis to understand the interaction amongst extension clientele. We can use social network analysis as a tool to find out that how impactful we are in like delivery of or diffusion of information. So for example, if there's a new pest come out for a specific grape variety, and we as from like a specific university develop a new variety for grape to uh, cure that specific pest for a grape. So we can use, and we, like as extension educator, we design program and we deliver program to the extension clientele. But we can use social network analysis to find out that how far this innovation is diffusing, or what are the barriers why it is not diffusing. And then you can use social network analysis to understand the communication and collaboration among extension professionals, because many times like we found out that like why we are not able to develop a quality robust program. Maybe we have like some kind of gaps, or why like there are some links missing between us, and we can use social network analysis to study that communication. For example, so for example, in my Florida study, I studied the work related communication of extension professional. And you can use the maps produced by social network analysis. They are very powerful maps, and they can use to report your outcomes to your administrators, that you report your outcomes to your funding agency, and they are very powerful in convincing that you are making a progress, and you're making the network dense, or people are more connected. Also we can use social network analysis to understand the like performance of different employees. So for example, people are more central in the network, maybe they have more access to information, more access to resources, and they are able to use those resources for their own benefits. Maybe people are more trusted in the network, so they get more promoted. So there are different ways we can understand like why there's a different performance level for different extension professional or any profession in any organization, and we can use social network analysis to understand. And then we can understand like how many people we are actually reaching out, what is the reach of our program, and we can use social network analysis for that part. So this is what I have for you guys, and I'm really sorry like there was a technical glitch in the beginning, and I believe that you guys did not had access to my slides in the beginning, and thank you for letting me know. But now I'm glad to take any questions. So any questions you guys have, so I'll take whatever question I can based upon like how long you are available.
Please make sure to put your questions into the chat box and make them for all panelists to see. Thank you.
And I'm also want to make sure that I cannot hear you guys, so it is better if